Suit up, strap in, warm the tires, and leave on yellow. Time for the MitsuTimes podcast, presented by MitsuTimes.org, the home of the fastest Mitsubishi cars. With your host, Josh.
What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of the MitsuTimes podcast. My guest today is Mr. Jamal Batson. He is the owner and driver of a very cool, very unique Mitsubishi Airtrek. How are you today, sir?
Hi, good night. I'm good, man. How are you doing?
I am fantastic. You know, this is a very special. Your car is one that I feel like we never see anymore. There was a time where they were kind of popular, and then they just kind of all disappeared. So I really love what you're doing with it.
Thanks, man. Yeah, it is not the most, it's not the most popular, as you said. But I like it, and I felt like it was something I wanted to do, and it's come together pretty good. It's come together pretty good.
Absolutely. Well, Jamal, I want to get right into the listeners who may not know who you are. Maybe they didn't see your Instagram, or I think Trevor just recently shared one of your videos. Why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your Airtrek?
Okay. Hi. Okay. My name is Jamal Batson. I'm from Barbados in the Caribbean. I have a Mitsubishi Airtrek. The 4G63. I do primarily drag racing with it. It was previously a road car. I had it built up pretty decent as a daily driver, but it's kind of evolved and into a kind of sometimes weekend drag car. And now at this point, it's just basically my race car. I'm the co-owner of JDM Squared Garage, basically a full service garage in Barbados. We generally do not a lot of performance cars on a day-to-day basis, just oil changes and brakes and regular stuff. But then we handle a fair bit of performance cars after hours and on weekends and that kind of stuff.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, Jamal, what got you into cars and eventually into racing?
Well, I when I was a lot younger, my father he had a Toyota MR2, the
Okay.
95, the SW20, I think it is, with the 3S GE. Uh, so he had one of those with the T-bar, with the removable roof and stuff. And in Barbados, from the time we were 16, we can go get a learner's permit and learn to drive. So from the time I was 15 years old, I had that on my mind that I needed to get myself in that car, and it was pretty quick. It wasn't the turbo version, but it was a pretty quick car. I mean, for what I knew about cars. And
Right.
then yeah, and then my friend circle were into cars on another level as well. Still back in my teens. So that kind of kicked me off on the cars.
Okay. And then, growing up in Barbados, what was your exposure to motorsports like? Did was there someone on TV? Did you see some people racing growing up?
Well, Barbados is a pretty small island,
Right.
so the main thing here was rally. So we would have, and our rally here was actually pretty big. We would have a lot of overseas competitors coming in. So that was the main kind of racing that we would see here. So it was like a full social event. So once there's car racing, once there's rally, you get everyone together, you pack some food, and you go, not quite in the country, because again, our island is pretty small. So they would close some roads and do some rally circuits, and that was basically what everyone considered car racing. Car racing was synonymous with rally in Barbados. So that was basically what we did, and rally is still a pretty big thing here in Barbados, actually. Um, we have some R5 class cars. We had some what you call Group A cars, Group N cars, that kind of stuff here.
Wow, that's really cool. I feel like I remember in the early 2000s, it was like almost a maybe Caribbean or South America like rally series where it was like Barbados and Trinidad and maybe Grenada or something like that, and they were going island to island, and the cars were so cool, and to see, not just, the normal rally views that you get to see normally, but the absolute beautiful background and scenery from all those islands.
Yeah.
It was really great to watch. Well, Jamal, the Airtrek is, like we said, a little bit of a less popular car. Was Mitsubishi always your platform that you wanted to go to, or since your dad had that MR2, was you just kind of landed on the Airtrek eventually?
Well, what happened? What happened was initially it was all about Toyota Starlets. I'm not sure if you know of those.
Oh yeah.
Um, yeah, I'm talking the front wheel drive variant, the EP82, not the KP61, which would have been the rear wheel drive variant. The rear wheel drive ones are pretty popular in drag racing in like Puerto Rico and stuff. Um, but the EP82 was kind of where I first got a start with cars. My first car was an EP82, a two-door. It was a naturally aspirated 4E FE, so a 1300 with a carburetor, and that was my first foray into cars. Uh, basically all of my guys at the point in time were into Starlets. That's just what we had. So on Sundays we would drive up to Bushy Park and we would race around the track. Bushy Park is our local multi-purpose circuit here. So basically we do there's karting at Bushy Park, there is circuit racing at Bushy Park, and that's our current drag racing home. Basically it's only an eighth a mile. We only have like the first 60 feet prepped or something like that. But basically that was my Sundays from my late teens, early 20s. Started off with Starlets, and then you know how these things go. You start off with Starlets, and it's just, the car is fast. Well, fast to you. Then you move up to a turbo Starlet, so we get the turbo variant, and I had a couple of those. And then I started to get into modification. Trying to find some place to put some, trying to find some place to put some young energy. And I got into modification, and then back then I remember I had a Greddy turbo on that car, and then there wasn't a lot of parts availability for it. So I remember you would have to get these cams from Australia, Ivan T cams, and you would try to run the variable intake manifold and that sort of stuff. So I got into that. I put a Mega Squirt ECU into it and started to pick at tuning and stuff back then. And I had, obviously, is no secret. Most people in Barbados that race legitimately know had nights in Mexico. Like we had street racing. We had street racing times. So just like everyone else, I had my street racing times, and I had a race one night, and I raced my starter against a WRX STI, and back then, once you have traction, you're on the highway. I was keeping up and passing STIs, so I didn't have any fear. But in a dig, and you were racing an STI, when the guy drops his hand, understand we're not on any prep surface, nothing fancy. When the guy dropped his hand, I see this STI and is 3, 4, 5 cars in front of me in a split second. So I'm thinking, well, this is crazy. My front wheel drive car is just spinning and spinning and spinning. I eventually catch up to him, but by the time I catch up to him, the race is over. And I made up my mind then. I'm like, yeah, I need to move to a platform that suits the surface that we're working with. So I scrapped my starter out, I put it back to bone stock, and I bought a WRX. I bought a WRX, and that was my first, I would say, like, well, obviously my starter would have been faster once rolling, but the WRX felt like a more serious performance car to me at the time. Um, and yeah, I started off there, ended up saving up and saving up to modify the WRX. But as I said, it was just getting into tuning. And from my research, an EJ was not the kind of engine to learn tuning on. It was not very forgiving. So when compared to a 4G63, the 4G63 allows you to make a lot of mistakes while still keeping together. So right before I actually started to modify my WRX, I got the idea. I said, you know what, I can sell it. I sold that, and I built my first Mitsubishi, which wasn't the Airtrek.
What did we start with first?
Okay, so I had a Mitsubishi Mirage which is the Evo 4. It was the Evo 4 ship. Um, and it was the Australian model. It was what they call a Mirage STR, which is the same thing as the Lancer GSR from around 1996 to 2000. Comes 1800, four-wheel drive turbocharged. All of them come automatic as far as I know. Well, yeah, all the STRs I've ever seen were automatic. So I got one of those. It was only one of two cars in the island. There was one STR, one GSR. And I got that. And then I built that up. Well, started to build that up, but I ultimately ended up, just because of rust and that sort of stuff, I ended up just getting another four-wheel drive shell and transferring the parts. But I built it with a 4G63 straight off the bat. And that kind of actually pushed me more into the performance thing, because I would have built that with the 4G63, and then shortly after driving it for a little while, I ultimately started racing it, because legal drag racing had started up in Barbados with the Barbados Association of Dragsters and Drifters. So yeah, we then had the 8th of Mile at Bushy Park, some place to go and race. And I mean, it didn't start fancy. This thing, we literally had a bend after about 60 feet out into the track. There was a pretty decent right-hand turn, but I mean, we made do with it. Yeah, we made do with it for some time, and then ultimately, eventually, as interest grew in the sport, we were able to get the track more. The track was redone, but then there were facilities put in place for the 8th Mile racing. We eventually got a little start area and that sort of stuff for staging and stuff. So I built my Mitsubishi Mirage and developed that. Actually got into tuning properly then, because initially it was just me messing around with my car. But after racing that car for a little while and gaining some confidence, then eventually people started to inquire, well, would you work on my car? And at that point in time, it was very much a hobby for me. So I wasn't comfortable doing it. And then eventually, you get more and more comfortable and getting good results. The car started to win some races, and you start to say, well, maybe there's something that I could do for someone. So then, you start to offer a service here and there, and yeah. And a good few years later, we are fairly far in it at this point.
Very nice. Well, you kind of already talked about how we made our way to the Airtrek through all these cars. So why don't you give us a rundown on the setup of your car right now as it sits?
Okay, so the Airtrek, my current Airtrek was an original Turbo R, which comes four-wheel drive. It comes four-wheel drive, 4G63, automatic. Basically, what an Evo 7 GTA basically is, with that five speed automatic transmission. How I ended up with it ultimately, though, was my father bought an Outlander, which is the US model Outlander that you guys would know, the 2003, I believe it is. Yeah. My father had one of those, and I thought to myself, I said, well, this, if you look at it the right way and you do the right things, this would be pretty cool. So I stumbled into the Airtrek and I got that. And then I initially built it up as a nice road car. I did a manual conversion, and I got all the interior pieces from like Evo 9 GT and stuff, and it was really built up as a road car. But as it stands now, it's built 4G63, high compression, triple disc XCD, triple disc clutch. It's running a Garrett GTX 3584 RS turbocharger. Radium fuel system with the surge tank and the 6-gallon fuel cell and that sort of stuff. I'm running let me see. We're running Plasma Man 8 injector, the billet intake manifold, so 1000cc primaries, 1700cc secondaries, drive by wire. What are we calling it? IGN 1A ignition. And yeah, what else? Engine management. For engine management is running a Haltech Nexus R3. So that's the one, what they call a VCU, because it has the integrated PDM. So I have everything for my engine runs directly off the VCU. So no relays or stuff to run my fuel pumps and fans and all that. All that stuff runs off the VCU. Liberty dog box. yeah, that's basically the setup, I would say. Yeah, Liberty Dog Box, and that's basically the setup on it.
Okay. Quite the serious setup. I mean, I see now why you're saying it's more of a race car, not so much a street car anymore.
Yeah, yeah. It's actually it kind of once the horse left the stable, it kind of got a little. I wouldn't say out of hand, but a lot has been done.
Yeah, hard to get it back in the stable for sure.
Almost impossible.
So Jamal, we talked about the Airtrek not being so popular, but we have seen some, with maybe stock frame turbos or a little bit of a build here and there, but not certainly not to the level of yours. So besides just the going faster and the big parts, what else makes your car stand out among those other ones?
Um, well, I mean, there because I'm in the community now, I know of a fair of a few of them that are pretty well built. Um, my car, given I communicate with air trap people all the time, my car really is fairly far gone. And I've encountered some of the problems of trying to what I call paying the unique tax because the Airtrek is not built for performance at all. So there's some things that I would have encountered that needed to be resolved in order for it to come to some semblance of reliability. Because things like how the rear differential is mounted and stuff like that, you can't race it. You can't race it in that state for very long on sticky tires because it doesn't have front diff support. So the diff kind of rocks up and down, and the propeller shaft down the center is soft. The transfer case has a very soft differential. So my car, there was a fair bit of fabrication that had to be done to the rear of my car to basically build a cradle for my differential to hold it in place and stuff like that. Uh, I've been through a bit of parts breaking to come to that, which wouldn't be a factor if I had just used an Evo platform. It would have been pretty straightforward from the factory. But because I wanted something a little different, kind of a SUV station wagon, that
Yeah,
kind
yeah.
of thing. Yeah, so had to pay the unique tax.
And that's I guess it depends on who you are, but it definitely seems like it's worth it in the end because it is very unique and it's very fast.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure we would be having this conversation for if it was just, another Evo that was built that way. I have a good friend of mine, Josh. He's a big fan of your podcast and a fan of your site. And he was very fussy about it. He's a hardcore Evo fan. He has a dandelion yellow Evo 5. And
Nice.
yeah, he's a hardcore Evo fan, and he was telling me he said an ear track or a conversation with anyone from the Caribbean about something like that is not something that he thinks he's heard on the podcast, and he is pretty sure it is because the build is unique. So I mean, it does have those benefits, and I've picked up a nickname for the car that I didn't choose it, but everyone calls my car in Barbados the bread van because it looks like a bread van. In Barbados, we have vans that drive around and deliver bread, sell bread, and everyone seems to call my car the bread van now. I didn't choose it, but it's just how it is right now.
I love that. That's cool. I mean, it is it gives your car a little bit of character.
Yeah, exactly that.
All right, so what you talked about how it would be so much easier to build and go the time that you've gone at the track with an Evo. Besides the just out getting the parts, like you said, what has been the biggest challenge that you've found of building this versus building something quote unquote easy like an Evo?
Well, for me, the suspension, because the car is not going to be happy being very low because it is was designed as an SUV. So trying to get the suspension and get the geometry right after a little bit of lowering and try to get the axle angles to not be ridiculous. That was a challenge. Also things like the electronics initially, because I didn't intend from the jump to put a Haltech engine management in the car because I tune a lot of stock ECU Evos here. that was my red car from before. My Mirage, that was a stock ECU car, and I tune a lot of stock ECU cars. So that was going to be my direction with this car initially, but because it's an Airtrek and because there's not, it's not the issue. The ECU is not as fleshed out as, let's say, an Evo 8 ECU with Tefra and that kind of stuff. I had to do a lot of. I basically converted the car to run Evo 8 wiring so I could run an Evo 8 ECU initially, that kind of stuff. So suspension, electronics, the fuel tank is not as well baffled. So on launches, the car would lose fuel if it's not fairly full. The tank would need to be fairly full. And outside of, I would say the suspension and those bits were the hard parts. That if I had just chosen to use the Evo platform, it would just work because it is made for that.
Yeah, that's a fair point. And it's one of those things where it's like so many people have done it. So many people have the recipe of what works and what doesn't, and you're kind of going off on your own path here.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is though, with regards to the recipe, I've learned that no matter what you choose, even if you choose the most cookie cutter build, the work still needs to be done. All cars still take development. You can no matter what build you choose, especially given our situation here in Barbados with not having a prepped quarter mile track, we have to traction is the enemy here. We have to fight traction really badly. So it is whatever I built in Barbados, getting it to work would still take effort. It would still be a case of getting all your T's crossed, getting all your I's dotted. So I'm not like I'm not sure that there's any build that you can just come toss your parts together and straight off you jump is going to happen. I've had friends build all types of different cars, and all the successful ones have been through a pretty rigorous dialing process. Let me say that, trying to just get it to work on our surface. We only recently, within the last, I would say 2 or 3 years, we were allowed to put trap bite on our surface. So that's still only the first 60 feet. So if you can imagine trying to get a car that's putting down power to get traction down, and no matter what platform you have, is going to be a challenge.
Yep. Yeah, that's fair. Well, you talked about breaking some stuff here and trying some stuff here. How much trial and error would you say went into this setup to get the car to where it is right now?
Uh, mostly I've been okay. It can get probably a little technical. So the the way that the Evos work, ACD or non ACD Evos, they're mostly front wheel drive with a little rear assist generally. Um, and my car, the Airtrek, that transfer case, the viscous coupling in it doesn't transfer a lot of power to the back, even less than the Evo. So it was it was a case where I needed more rear drive, and in the trial and error, I took the option of going with a center differential in my car. So I put in a Quave center, which basically made the car 50-50. And trying to get once I it was fine. The car became 50-50. I started to get traction, but from the time I put slicks on the car, trying to get even more traction and trying to tame the power of the car, I started breaking driveline parts. So at first it was my propeller shaft, the prop shaft running down the center of the shaft, the drive shaft. I'd been breaking that. Eventually I upgraded it to the Evo 91 because it was bigger. And then the rear differential, as I would have spoken about earlier with it moving up. What would happen is that on a launch, the nose of the rear diff, because it's not supported at the nose, it would go up and it would hit the gas tank, and it would break out the bolts out of the back of the diff that holds the diff in place at the back. Um, and I did that at one event. I did that twice before I knew what was causing it to happen. And then if you don't, right now, the car runs a clutch slipper, and if you don't got enough clutch slipping, or you bringing the power too early, it was breaking axles. rear axles because they send so much power to the back. I've been breaking rear axles. I've broken like 5 rear axles. They would call that like definite trial and error. Um, I found the point now where we know how much slip is necessary and at what kilometer per hour I can fully lock up the clutches and bring in the full power. But in order for the car to be faster, I would need to address that. We're running stock Evo 9 axles now with a slight modification for them to work on my car. The Evo 9 non AYC, so the RS ones. Slight modification for them to work on my car, but it's still a stop gap because I can't put down the power from the jump on slicks and especially on a prep surface.
I mean, that's such a violent mechanical failure. That must have been crazy to feel that happen.
A few times. I felt it a few times.
Scary stuff.
Yeah.
So, Jamal, I just added you to the list. I haven't had a chance to post it yet. I wanted to record this first. So, I want to talk about your best time that you've been able to have. You said a lot of it over there is eighth, and then sometimes you
Yeah.
get to shoot on the road and do some quarter mile stuff. So, tell us a little bit about how it's been going.
Okay, so it's been 8th mile so far. On the 8th, my fastest time has been 6:3 on the 8th, 118 miles per hour, I believe. Actually, I think the 6:3s were done at 112 or 114. So it's pretty repeatable running a 6:3 now. That's with a pretty ordinary 1.7 60 foot. Um, Last year in Barbados, we had our first ever side by side quarter mile because we have had quarter mile events before where we closed the road and carried the timing equipment from the track. But it was more what they would call an acceleration test because you couldn't race next to anyone. It was just one person at a time doing quarter miles. So I would have ran 11.6 previously with my Mirage that I spoke about earlier. The Airtrek, however, ran 9.7 was the fastest time for the Airtrek. I was battling on the day I was battling some misfire issues and stuff, so it was in the tens. I was running 10.3, 10.4 fairly consistently with a pretty bad misfire, but on a half decent pass, it was able to run a 9.7 with a 1.560 foot, I think at 142 miles per hour.
So at 9.7, and it still has lots of room to improve.
Yeah, definitely. Because ironically, I ran that 9.7 in an attempt to not break out of the 10-second class. Because the car was misfiring, I qualified for 10s. So I wanted to race in 10s. And at the point in time, my business partner, he was my crew chief on the day. And I had a conversation with him. I said, well, I'm pretty sure we have the misfire fixed. Should we just go for it? Or are we trying to win this class? And we ultimately decided, okay, well, we're going to try to win the class. So let's take the boost out of 4th gear and hope that the car runs a 10. So that was the first clean pass with no misfiring in any of the gears. And the car performed a little better than anticipated and it ran a 9.7. So everyone says they don't know the full potential, but I can honestly say the car didn't have a lot of boost in 4th. So I know for a fact that it would have been quicker, provided it was trying to go quicker. But it was an effort to not break out. Still ultimately ended up losing the race. I went through the finish line first. I ran my personal best fastest time, but I lost the race because it was in the 10-second class.
Man, that's a heartbreaker.
Indeed. I mean, bittersweet though, because I didn't know that I would be running a 9.7 on the day, so it wasn't horrible. It's just, it would have been nice. It would have been nice if we had just decided to send it and try to get as go as quickly as possible.
Well, Jamal, how does this car feel on a pass? Is it top heavy? I mean, obviously, Evo has a low center of gravity, so does it feel pretty stable when it's at those speeds?
Yes. My car, it is actually my car. While it spins, it doesn't. When it's wheel spinning, it doesn't go left, right, nothing like that. His car keeps pretty straight. It's a one-hand drive car all the way down the quarter mile. Almost no drama. Yeah, almost no drama.
That's the way we like them, right?
Yeah, almost just about no drama. It just about drives itself down the road.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, would you say that 9.7, even though you lost it in the end, you got to make your best pass? What do you think that was your most memorable race or moment behind the wheel of this car?
Yeah, most definitely. And it was actually a pretty dramatic race as well because I was I was trying my best to get a light, to cut a light, but I was also not trying to keep my car on the launch control for very long and stuff like that. So the guy that I was racing a legend in Barbados, a guy named Sammy Cumberbatch, and he's from a family of racers. So he had a 10-second car. He races a BMW, and he left me sleeping on the line, like as in I had his reaction time. His reaction time was near point 0.8 quicker than mine. So he left me sleeping on the line, and it was a case where I launch. I had to chase him. I passed him in third gear, and then went through the finish line first. And it was quite a feeling. I would say that that's the most memorable race I've ever had. It was very 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 exciting.
Sounds like it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you talked about being able to go head to head with some of the biggest names in on the island and some of the fastest cars. Does it do you when you're lining up to this with this car, do you feel like you're pretty confident knowing what it's capable of?
Well, yeah, at the level it's at now, we're at the point with the program where the car is pretty consistent in a low six. So we in Barbados, the fastest car we have here, well, the fastest proven time is a 5.8. That's from Bruce and those guys. That's an Evo 3, and those guys don't mess around. But ultimately, if the fastest time is a 5.8, my car runs a consistent 6.3. And I mean, I'm pretty sure there's more in it. So just about anyone that I go to race, even if they're faster, is still a race. They still have to cut a light. So I'm not in a position where there's anyone that is going to lag on the line or sleep on the line, and I'm guaranteed to lose. It's a case where I can fight with just about anyone because we're in the same ballpark, given there's a reaction time to consider. So I really don't. And there are some faster cars. There are some very well sorted cars here. But with racing, it's all about getting the pass together on the day. So is I have those challenges. Those guys have those challenges. So I don't really get too nervous next to anyone. It's just a case of it's me, the track, the light. I need to cut a light. I need to get the traction. I need to get in my gears. And if someone's next to me and they win, I I had a good pass as far as I'm concerned. Then there's nothing lost there. Like that has to be a very well prepared car. So I'm not very fussy about who I have to race or anything. Anyone that I have to race, if they win, they really brought something proper. So I don't really fuss about that.
I love that. You kind of run your own race.
Yeah, yeah. Because on the day you're always racing the lights on the track and yourself and your car. It really doesn't matter who's next to you. That's actually the best thing I found is to not even put it in your mind who's next to you because they can only drive one car at a time and so can you. So I drive my car, I drive the track, I drive the light.
Okay, I like that. Well, after the 9.7, you said it wasn't at its best. What's the next big performance goal for the Airtrek? Is it to go even quicker?
Yeah. After I ran the 9.7, I got a guy from Russia reached out to me. Guy named George from Russia, and he has what he says and what everyone says to be the world's fastest one.
Oh
Um,
wow.
but he is in Russia. He has a prep surface and all that, and his car runs 9.5. So obviously, I would like to go faster than that. But ultimately, I would like to do an 8 second quarter, and I want to be doing a 5 second eighth.
Well, you definitely got to beat the guy from Russia. That's number one.
Yeah, that's the most attainable target currently. But 5 second eighth, 8 second quarter is the ultimate goal.
This episode of the Mitsu Times podcast is brought to you by Kirkpatrick Auto and Fleet Repair. Kirkpatrick Auto and Fleet Repair is a local, full-featured auto shop in Chilliwack, British Columbia, with years of experience and comprehensive ability. Instead of searching for a different provider every time your vehicle has a problem, their team of technicians is at the ready to deal with everything from electrical problems to diagnostic issues. They believe in providing the best possible customer service and transparent pricing for all the work they do. When you choose them, you know you'll be in good hands. And when you drive your vehicle away from their shop, it will be an excellent repair or maintenance service. That's the Kirkpatrick Auto and Fleet Repair way. Find out more about their products and services at kirkpatricks.ca. Good deal. Okay. Well, Jamal, I want to talk a little bit more about the scene in Barbados because obviously a lot of us, not just in the U.S., but Australia, people listening in Europe, they don't get to hear a lot about the racing scene on specific islands in the Caribbean. So, for people that are listening elsewhere, what is the racing scene like in Barbados? We talked about doing some rally racing still being popular and getting to do some quarter mile drags and shutting down. What else is going on there? What kind of cars are popular there?
Okay, well, the racing scene in Barbados is pretty diverse. As I said, initially, rally was basically all there was for racing in Barbados.
Yeah,
No, we have a bit more diversity. There's rally, there's a good bit of karting, there's the drag racing. The drifting is now becoming a lot more popular. We actually now have guys building drift cars. Before before in Barbados, no one built anything other than a rally or a circuit car.
wow.
Because yeah, there wasn't any facility or there wasn't any interest behind it. So we wouldn't it really just didn't make sense. You have a dry car or you have a drift car built to maybe drive once a year or twice a year. It just didn't make any sense to commit to it. But no, we have a more, let me say, let's say people are more open to these different types of racing. So we have the rally, we have drag racing, the drifting is becoming more popular. There's still some circuit racing at Bushy Park. Um, there's a karting. What's that thing they call it? Oh Lord, the autocross. Autocross is also pretty popular, and yeah, and as I told you, we have a multifunction facility here. So the the Bushy Park racing circuit, there's some classes of what I guess we would call time attack or time trial, where the guys trying to get their times down, and there's a little street rivalry with some street cars attacking these times and trying to beat the current street records for what non-race cars racing on the track. There's a lot of that. Our street scene it's kind of up and down. Over the last few years, it has picked back up tremendously. Like we have popular gas stations here that if you go there on a Sunday night, like sometimes depending on the time, you can't go in the gas station. There are performance cars everywhere. The performance cars parked in the road in the gas station. The gas station running one or two pumps because everywhere else is a car. Um, the popular cars we have it's pretty diverse. Got a lot of Civics. The Type Rs are still pretty popular. The FK8, there's a pretty big group of those guys. EP3 Type Rs. Still see a few EK9s. There are the guys with the Toyota Run X's, which is the 2ZZGE, which is the 1800 Toyota engine with lift. Those there's a pretty big community of those guys. Uh, then of course there are lots of Evo guys. There are Evo 4s, 5s, 6s, 7s, 8s, 9s. There are lots of Evos here. Evo 10s. There's a pretty big thriving Subaru community. They're actually a lot better organized at the social aspects than anyone else. They have general meetings and they have gatherings for lunch and that sort of stuff. Uh, so we have a fairly diverse car community here. There's a lot going on.
So cool. I just feel like, to have a culture on such a small island of all these different cars, and it must be one of those tight knit things, right, where a lot of people know each other, and I think that's so cool.
Yeah.
And Jamal, how competitive would you say that the other races are? You talked about some big names out there. Is it? Do you feel like everybody's kind of in the same category when it comes to what times we're running?
Um, well, there are, I would say there's a class. The fastest class we have here would be like the 6 second class with the low 6 second cars. There are a good few cars that run sixes here.
Hmm.
I would say for the most part though, the 8 second class and the eighth mile would be where there's a lot of competition. So because that's where the faster naturally aspirated cars are, and then the turbo guys are mostly front wheel drive cars fighting traction, that sort of thing. We've had some major advancements with the once the track bite went down. Really fast front wheel drive and rear wheel drive cars started to creep up to the 6 second. We've actually had a 6 second front wheel drive car here running a 6.8, which was no small deal because I could tell you that car spent years just spinning and spinning. I know it's still spinning, but is made it into the 6 second class, and that's pretty crazy. Um, so there's a lot of competition, I would say, in the 7 and 8 second eighth mile class. The 6 second class, there are a good few cars, but just obviously when you get down there, the reliability starts to become a little bit more questionable, and parts breakage and the expense of everything goes up a lot. So the slightly slower cars are would have a lot more competition, a lot more cars to race.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, but for me, I'm mostly going to be up against other four wheel drive big turbo cars. So they're mostly Evos. Um, Actually, I would have done the last two events. I ended up in the finals against the same car, an Evo 7, a built Evo 7, and that we were in the finals in one drag club because Barbados we now have a second drag racing association. So we were in the finals for one drag club, and then it was in the finals against that car for the next drag club. So it's mostly going to be Evos. There are a couple Nissan Pulsars, with the SR20 DE and VET and what's not. There are a couple of those. There are some Subarus, but we've not had any Subarus creep into the sixes as yet. Um, those cars are, in general, they're a lot more road biased. There are not many dedicated Subaru drag cars here. Those guys tend to do a lot more road stuff and a lot more laming and stuff like that.
Well, hell, there's not a lot of Subaru drag cars here either.
Yeah,
Doesn't seem to be very popular for drag racing.
no.
Well, Jamal, you talked about a lot of these Evos and big turbo builds. So the it's I just want to confirm that the Mitsubishi presence in Barbados is very strong. It sounds like.
Yeah, Mitsubishi presence. I'm not sure if the Mitsubishi Colt, the CJ4A, like a hatchback. It's like a hatchback Evo 4 kind of thing. They
Oh
might
yeah,
call it a Mirage.
or a cyborg, right? Is that
Right, or the Cyborg, yeah.
yeah?
There are a bunch of those as well. There are a bunch of those as well. Um we only the Gallants, the VR4s, there aren't many of those. You would see, like, I think there's one sedan, and then there are a couple what you would call the Legnum, the
Yeah,
wagon
yeah.
shaped one. Yeah, there are, I think, a couple of those as well. We used to see Mitsubishi FTOs on the road. We don't see any of those these days. I'm not sure. I guess all those cars kind of died out. Um, those cars kind of died out. But it's mostly going to be, we have a bunch of Evo 10s. And then, I'm talking about the high spec performance cars, but also there are a lot of regular Lancer guys that modify their 4Gs, and they turbocharge them. They do all sorts of things. Some of them put nitrous on them, that sort of stuff. So the Mitsubishi presence in general is pretty prominent. There are a lot of Mitsubishis in Barbados.
And Jamal, you talk about those guys with the Lancers making the most out of them. I one of my absolute favorite things, I think it's most obvious in Puerto Rico, but one of my favorite things about the Caribbean race culture is they'll take whatever car that they have and make a race car out of it. It doesn't matter. Like here in the States, if you have a regular Lancer, people will just, hey, sell that and buy something else. Whereas
Yeah,
and they're like, I'm going to use this to build a race car.
correct. That's basically that's a lot of mentality here. You have something, it starts as a daily, you start to modify it, then it's a race car and you have to buy a daily. That's how it works here.
I love that. I
Yeah.
love it. So what's something, Jamal, that maybe people that aren't familiar with the Caribbean race scene, or Barbados scene specifically, that maybe we wouldn't expect people from the outside?
Okay. From the outside, I would say what people wouldn't expect would be, well, you would never really you wouldn't be exposed to it, but for the quality of cars that you would see here and some of the builds you would see here is actually pretty amazing given the hurdles that we have to jump. Basically, we don't have as I said, we don't have a dedicated quarter mile, and it's something that we would really like to see happen. Um, Not having a dedicated track doesn't really encourage people to go all out and build stuff. But one of the major hindrances in Barbados is import duties. So basically, to buy a part, when I see a part, I go on STM or I go on Extreme PSI and I see a part. If that part is $100 and it's shipped to Barbados, by the time I'm finished, I have to pay about 50% of that cost on that part just to get it in my hand. So is yeah, it is a serious uphill race and is a serious financial commitment if you're going to try to build a car at a pretty high level. So it's not a case where you see something and it's like, okay, well, we ordered the part, it's here in a couple of days, you bolt it on. We have to go through our customs processes is pretty involved. So you import a part, um you got to deal with all the invoicing and stuff, and then you got a situation where whatever that part costs in US dollars, you can look to spend that same amount of money in Barbados dollars again just to get it in your hand after you purchase it. So it's like a major restriction on how you can build and modify cars. So and I've spoken to persons before from the US, and when they start to talk about that sort of stuff, it's like, how you mean you gotta pay extra once you get it, and that much money is it's like it's not it's very considerable. It's a considerable expense to try to build a car at a high level here. So when you see a car and it has like in case of my car going, it has an intake manifold from Australia. That's like I had to jump through a lot of hoops, and ultimately, things have to go. You have to put things in suitcases and bring them in the island if you want to avoid sometimes having to deal with that kind of stuff. So it kind of limits what people can do and limit the quality. Well, it hasn't. I can't say it limited the quality because we still build really nice cars, but
Hmm.
it's a case where we have to do it like the parts. You really have to be committed to this thing because it is really expensive to build a car here.
It definitely sounds like it. That's insane.
Yeah, it is really expensive to build a car here.
Well, we talked about there being a lot of Evos on the island, and there being, from stock builds to big turbo Evos, and obviously your card. Is that community tight knit, or is it competitive, or do you guys like collaborate and try to help each other with parts and stuff like that?
I would say it's not bad. There are like a few Mitsubishi specific group chats and parts basically again, because importing parts is kind of prohibitive. Once something is in the island, it's generally passed from person to person via a different upgrade path until it's no longer of any use. So when you import a turbo and you have it and you use it, eventually another Mitsuman is probably going to buy it from you. And so the community is pretty close. I would say that I would know a solid 80% of the Mitsubishi guys, especially the guys with high horsepower builds. I would know just about all of them by name and probably have their numbers in my phone.
So you talked about your business partner also being your crew chief and helping keeping the car together. How important has your crew or your shop your business been uh, to the success of this car?
I you really can't really function at at any moderate level without having strong people there and having good people there that believe in it. My business partner, his name is Dwayne. He was just a crew chief on the day. He generally collaborates on the car. He collaborates on the car, testing and gives his input and stuff. He comes to races and stuff like that. He also has an Evo. He has an Evo 8 car, fairly well built car as well, 750 horsepower car. But he is more into the circuit. Remember, I spoke about the time trials around our local track. So at a point in time, he would have had the fastest street car lap, I think a 108 or something like that. I'm not sure if the guys took it down now because it's been a couple years. But yeah, he contributes, and I have a pretty strong team, and it would be just about impossible without people because when you have to drive, and then I obviously I tune all the cars, so I tune all of my customer cars and my car. Sometimes I'm at racing and I'm racing my car, and I have two other people there that are racing as well. So if my car breaks apart, for me to go and change an axle and then I get called to a race, it just wouldn't work. So having a strong team is basically like is absolutely essential. I wouldn't be able to do it. I find myself in a good position because again I have a garage, I have a workshop, so facilities I can work on my car at 3 a.m. is not a problem. So having that option as well has been really critical in the car having any sort of success because it it takes a lot, and to try to take it on as one person, it could be daunting.
And then, from obviously you see a lot of Facebook groups, a lot of Instagram posts, stuff like that. How would you compare the scene there to the scenes that you see from other parts of the world?
Um, well, I'm not. I wouldn't be sure about like the personal relationships with guys overseas, but I can tell you like here, uh, information. Like I was spoken about the guy here with the fastest car here. The guy Bruce with the Evo 3. My car, well, when it was breaking parts, he came over and he laid on under my car, and he was like, "This is what's happening. That is what's happening. You need to sort this. You need to sort that." Last week, when I had to race the Evo 7 in the finals. They were having a problem. Their mechanic is also a good friend of mine. I told him, I said, well, I feel as though you should pull in the plug gap because I think the plug gap might be too wide. That's why the car misfiring. Like, you can have a person to race here and still give them input and still try to get the best out of them. And that's something that's how it is. Well, that has been my experience with racing and with the scene here. Like, I have people. I just yesterday 2 days ago I had a guy, his name is Andre. He also does tuning, Dre Tune. He came over to the shop, and me and him we run the same times, so we are competition for each other. But he would come over to my shop and we could have conversations about performance and issues that he's having, issues I'm having, and it's not going to be an issue. It's not a problem. So I'm not sure I can comment on how it is here locally, but I can't say that about internationally. As far as how cars are done, I can say like in the years ago, maybe ten years ago, everyone's car was more like Japanese style. So like many gauges as you can have. You got gauges on the A pillar, you got gauges on the dashboard, you got all the pretty lights or whatever. In the engine bay, you got different color and fittings and that sort of stuff. But no, well, back then it would have been AN. 10 years ago, we would have been doing a lot of AN and stuff. It would have been just silicone hoses. No, everything is very much simplified. So no one wants a lot of gauges in their car. Like everything kind of clean up a bit. Um, that's what I would say, like as compared to like what I see from Japanese culture with when how I see their cars and stuff. I've not had a lot of experience with US cars. I mean, I see them on the internet. I see how the guys prepare their cars, and I could say that we kind of do it fairly similar. The high level, the better sorted cars here are going will have a dash, will have a digital dash, and you won't got anything inside the gauges, none of that sort of stuff. All the sensors everywhere for everything, that kind of stuff. But as far as the personal relationships, I can't comment on that side of the culture because I've never been exposed to it.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Well, Jamal, getting back to your car, what's next for it?
The next thing for my car, I feel I need to sort the axle situation so that I can really get the power in from earlier, so I could work on that 60 foot. And I think I may take it down from 17-inch slicks down to 15s. Um, but that's once I've figured out the whole axle situation. Because as far as power goes, I'm not. I don't think that the car is lacking power currently, and I'm one of those persons. I'm not going to make a car more powerful if I'm breaking parts at my current power level. I feel as though until you extract the potential of what you have, upgrading upgrading to something more powerful just doesn't make sense to me. So ideally I would like to be able to see my 5 second goal with my current power setup just by refining the traction and refining the drive line so that I can actually take a hard launch and I could lock up my clutches earlier and put the power to the ground. That's in the short term. Ultimately, everybody wants more power. So eventually, if I want to run those 8 second passes, I'm going to have to run more power. I was considering my next turbocharger upgrade, and yeah, that's basically it. In the short term, get the power to the ground earlier. In the long term, more power.
It's definitely, you're already doing so well with this car, so the fact that you want to go quicker and get more power, I mean, that should be exciting for everybody. Jamal, do you see yourself sticking with this car long term, or do you eventually want to switch to a different chassis?
To be absolutely honest, that's almost something outside of my control. I say that because ultimately I would like a rear wheel drive car. I would like an 8 HP car because I've been following some of those builds, and those transmissions are amazing. But I wouldn't do something like that until we were able to properly develop facilities in Barbados for our racing. So I'm kind of stuck. I'm kind of stuck on what I have. And it's not a bad thing because I built my car because I wanted to build it, and I absolutely love the platform. And I've been with the Mitsubishi platform for so long that if I need to, if something breaks, I usually have a spare. And when you dive into a brand new platform that you have nothing for, and you need to buy every single part you need, it is really expensive to start over. So I wouldn't just quit with the 4G63 platform. But I would really like a rear wheel drive. I would really like to experiment with a rear wheel drive car, a 8 HP car. But I wouldn't do that unless we were to be able to get a dedicated quarter mile, a dedicated facility, so that we can race the car and I could have some place to actually dial it and get it to what I want.
Jamal, sometimes at like some events that we see maybe in Puerto Rico, or we see like in Orlando Speed World, we see like the Caribbean versus the world or anything like that. Do you ever like have long-term goals or dreams of maybe going to one of those events or racing outside of Barbados?
Yeah, most definitely. We this drag racing at the level that it's at now hasn't been here. It hasn't been at this level in Barbados for a very, very long time. It's only over the last few years that the idea of traveling with a car um, even became a reality. So I have some of my friends would have taken their cars through the islands already. They raced in Antigua, they raced in Grenada, and there's an event in Grenada later this year. And once everything goes well, I intend to send my car down and go and have some fun with it there. and hopefully next year I take it to Antigua. There's a pretty developed racing scene in Trinidad and Jamaica and those places. So yeah, I definitely want to be able to carry the car overseas and race it because, as I said, as much as I really appreciate the opportunity to race on our AFML here, and I really would love to see what the car would do on a properly prepped track when I can actually put in the power and not really worry about the wheel spin and all of that is. So because we have, as I said before, we only have the first 60 with track bite. So and it's not always prepped. So it's a case where even when you get a good 60, sometimes the car starts to spin outside of that, and you can't really get a fantastic 330 after that because you're still easing in your power in second gear. Like I still can't put in everything in second gear with my cars yet. So a proper track that you can get some good 60s and you can actually let the car run out and see what's going on, that would be ideal. So I have all intentions of traveling with the car this year and then continuing next year with it.
Good. That's awesome. That's we need to see it out there more, and people all over need to see it out there doing what it does best. Well, Jamal, where can people find and follow you on social media and see some pictures and some videos of what you're doing with this crazy thing?
Uh, you can follow me at Fur246. That's FUR246, and then JDM2 Garage. That's both on Instagram. I created a page specifically for the car, but I struggle to upload as frequently as I would like. That's Airtrek 246. Those are all on Instagram. I'm going to try to commit to posting a lot more because over the last few months I've gotten a lot of interest from places I wouldn't even expect. I received, as I said, I received the message from the guy in Russia, people from Nevis and Grenada. I was on a video call with a guy from Antigua. Like he called me and he sent me a message. He was like, "Well, can I get a video of this car?" Like, so because of the interest that I'm seeing now, I really need to put a little bit more effort in developing a social media presence, as opposed to how it is now, which is basically when a cameraman does a recording, then he collaborates with me, and then it gets out there. So I'm not really I don't actively push it as well as I should, but given the interest that I'm seeing now in the car, I really need to try to get it out there some more and let some more people take advantage of it.
And then Jamal, at the end, I always give people a chance to give thanks or a shout out to anybody who's helped get the car where it is, anybody who's helped them get where they are. Is there anybody that you would like to give a thanks or a shout out to?
Oh boy, I would be on this call. I'd be on this call for a very long time because, as I said, this is not in any way a solo effort. I get a lot of assistance from some really knowledgeable people. But mostly just like my people. I would have mentioned Josh before, doing my head mechanic Darian. He does a lot of work on the car. He keeps it working really well. There are some guys in Barbados that are really talented when it comes to fabrication and stuff like that. I get my guy Corey from Stanford Industries. He come when there certain things he would come and sort out on my car, and he makes what I would think to be complicated look really simple and straightforward. Always my guy Bali David. He's another top man. And as I said, I would be at it for a very long time. The all the welding on my car is done in house at my garage by Reweld, REWeld. You can follow him on Instagram at REWeld, and that's about it. People, I'm definitely leaving out people. I don't mean anything by it, but there have been a lot of contribution to my car, man. There are many people that help make it what it is.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like it took a village to build this for sure.
Yeah, I get a lot of assistance. I get a lot of assistance. Everything other than the roll cage and paint was basically done at my garage, but I get a lot of insight far more knowledgeable people, and I can run particular issues by this guy and that guy, and get another perspective on it. And there's a lot of value. There's a lot of value just in words and knowledge. It doesn't always have to be a physical contribution or money or someone coming and welding something. If someone can tell you something that you don't know that makes the situation better, then they've significantly contributed to the program. So I don't overlook that, and I get a lot of that from a lot of good people.
Good. Well, Jamal, thank you so much for taking the time to come on here and share your stories and share the story of your car. I'm definitely going to be keeping my eyes glued to your social media account so I can see you going out and doing some more racing and traveling to these other places. I wish you the best of luck, and I can't wait to keep up with you and see what else you do.
Yeah, thanks a lot, man, and I really appreciate the opportunity to come here and talk about it. I'm a hardcore enthusiast, so any opportunity to sit and talk about cars, fine by me. So I really appreciate the opportunity to come and do it. And yeah, I hope that you like what you see going forward.
Absolutely.
Yeah, mate.
Jamal, have a great night.
All right, mate. You as well. Thanks for the call.
Thank you for listening to the MitsuTimes podcast. Check out our Instagram and Facebook for daily updates. Get added to our list by going to MitsuTimes.org and clicking Submit a Slip. Thank you to all of our sponsors.